All right, hello. Thank you for joining. Today we'll be starting the first sprint in the Chrono Platformer project. You can see I've got my sprint 1 here. All I have to do is go click this blue button that says Start Sprint. Duration 1 week. Includes issues currently hidden by a quick view or the instant filter. Okay. So now we've got our sprint board here. We've got our features at the top here, character design, platforms, and movement. And then we've got our individual stories down here. And then also, if we go over to our epic view, we should have a sprint burned down here. So this shows this gray line is the recommended burn down. And once we start checking things off, then we will see, hopefully we'll see a red line that shows our remaining work. And yeah, that'll be useful. But, oops. Right now I want to start off with the active sprints. So these are cards and you can just drag them into in progress and done. So we're gonna start with character design. It's in progress. And the first thing here is the game theme. And when you move these guys, it should automatically go and update the status. So now it says in progress here. Whoa, Hager loves Pinky. Thanks for the comment. I'm glad to see you're first. Everyone knows that you're the winner. Okay. So I'll start first with game theme. So I'll move that to in progress. I think I'm going to use OneNote to keep track of my notes here. I've not really used OneNote before, but I get the idea. You know, it's like Microsoft Word, except you can click anywhere to add a picture or a... Hello, PiMaster 314 GD. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Thanks for the first time in the chat. So I've got my notebook here, Chrono Platformer, which is the name of the project, not necessarily the name of the game. Gonna create a new section here. This is gonna be character design. Do you know how to make a vector 3 have only a y value, not an x, y, and z value? I've got a couple thoughts right off the bat. My first thought is that you would, assuming you are working in Unity, you could start off with having the update function, right? Because you put a script onto your object that has a vector 3 and you have this script. You can call it access locker, like that kind of access. And then in the update, you do something like x is equal to default x value, and z equals default z value. And then you just let y be whatever you want it to be. And then you have to set the default x and z value in the editor, but that would basically every frame reset the x and z value to that. That's one option. Another option is that Unity has, you have a vector 3 there, but they also have a vector 2, and they might just have a vector 1 or just a vector or something that lets you make one that only has one dimension. The last thought I have is that vector 3 could have some API that's like lock x-axis. I'm uncertain about that though. Those sound like good solutions, PiMaster? You wanted to do it like that. Could I ask what the use case is? Like, well, what do you want to do with this variable once you have it? You're using this to see if the vector called position, where the position is the position of the player, has a y value lower than a certain point so that it can reset the level. Yeah, that's a good script to have. That's like a last resort kind of kill the player if they somehow miss all of your kill zones. Yeah, I don't think you need to worry about having a vector 3 only have a y value. Just ignore the x and the z value. Only check the y value. So you would do something like if transform dot position dot y is less than -100 or something like that, then player dot kill. Okay, so bug fix, you don't want them to fall infinitely. So if you don't want them to fall below, you want them to fall intentionally. Like you want them to follow the map purposely, but then you don't want them to fall infinitely. So well, in that case, I would probably just have a platform at the bottom that they can land on. But you could also do something like if transform.position.y is less than -100, then just set it equal to -100. Right, and that would, if they're trying to go below -100, they'll just snap to -100 and they'll stay at that point. I'm not sure I've heard of block soars, but yeah, it sounds like an interesting, it's kind of like an Easter egg, right? You have something hidden in the map, and yeah. Well, I'll write it down in my notebook. Check out block soars for PiMaster. Well, PiMaster, does that give you some ideas on how to attack your problem? It's a rotating 3D rectangle that you move around, and you gotta move it correctly to solve puzzles. If you make a wrong move, you fall out of the map and it resets you. That seems cool. Does this, do you think this answers your question? Or is something to work with at least? Cool. I'm glad I could help, PiMaster. Let me copy this text. I'll just put it into the chat for you, so that way when I delete it off screen, it's not lost. Okay. Cool, yeah. If you try it out and it doesn't work, you can, all my Twitch streams I upload to YouTube, and you can leave a comment on there if it didn't work out on my YouTube channel, and I'll respond there. Okay. So, back to game theme. I want to have a solid idea of what the theme of the game is. Now, theme can mean a lot of different things. In this sense, I initially meant like what sort of aesthetic it would have, what it would look like, if it would be, you know, if it would be like a Mario or like a Zelda in the forest, or you know, snow themed or something like that, you know. Maybe underwater, outer space. There's lots of interesting ideas you could have for themes. Okay. But theme also means another thing. Theme also means what the core idea of your game is. So I think I want to establish both of those. Well, let me give my quick pitch for my game. It's a puzzle platformer with some action elements, so there'll be enemies that you fight, and there'll be bosses. It's a side-scrolling platformer, 2D, and the gist of it is that you're stuck in this time loop where you play through the day, and then at the end of the day, time resets back to the beginning of the day. And in order to win the game, you have to go through all 4 dungeons and beat the bosses of those dungeons in time before the end of the day. But when you play through it the first time, you'd only just barely get to the final boss before the day resets. If you've heard of Majora's Mask, it's a Zelda game. It's kind of similar to that idea. One distinction from that is I had this idea for this thing I called a chrono box, right? Which is you earn ways to get farther into the game each day, like the game Kindergarten. Haven't played the game Kindergarten, but kind of. I would say that you could choose any of the 4 directions to go right from the beginning. But there will be shortcuts that you can unlock after doing one of them. So you go to Dungeon A, and it unlocks a shortcut to help you get through Dungeon B. But if you went to Dungeon B first instead, then it'll give you a shortcut for Dungeon C. And sort of like this. And so they all kind of play into each other. And there's this idea of the chrono box where you can put something into the chrono box, and then when the day resets, everything that was in the chrono box is still there. But like a normal chest, when the day resets, the normal chest is back to what it was before. So if there was a bomb in a chest and you pick it up and you use it, right? And then the day resets, well, that bomb is back in the chest at the beginning of the day, and you can use it again. Yeah, so the shortcuts makes it so you can do things faster, and once you unlock all the... Well, thanks for the... Thank you for the follow, PiMaster. I guess also Tamaguchi bot chatted. It was this bot thing that I tried to set up to have this like pet in this corner of the screen, but I need to get more followers first. I need to get to the affiliate level so I can have the channel rewards. So thank you for the follow. We're one step closer to that goal. I don't know about that. That's quite a few followers. See, that's 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, septillion. Yeah, 209 septillion followers. I don't think that there would even be that many follow bots to follow me, but I appreciate your enthusiasm, PiMaster. And I'll... Hey, everyone counts. I do appreciate not using a follow bot. I would like to be organic. So, in terms of themes, like thematic ideas for this game, I was kind of thinking about this earlier today because I knew I was going to work on this, and I can't help myself but think it makes sense to me that the theme of the game is something like letting go of the past. Because time is resetting over and over again. You're sort of trapped in this bubble of this one day. It's like Groundhog's Day. You've seen Bill Murray in Groundhog's Day. It's a good movie. In order to progress beyond this time bubble that you're trapped in, you have to let go of the past. You have to move on. You have to let things go. You have to get past that barrier to the next day. So I kind of like that idea. Take these out of here. This is like a different idea. How do I set the position of the player to a vector 3? I have a vector 3 for the starting position so that it's easier to teleport my player back to start. Okay. I think I can help you with that. Hi, I'm W2Melvinsdad. Thanks for joining. So PiMaster, for your issue there, you have a vector 3 and you want to set the player's position to that. So let's say you have a variable for the player, something like, it's called player. Okay, you do player.transform.position. Don't know it off the top of my head, but I think it's probably set position, and then you give it your vector 3. This would be called your start position. Go check on that. I think you could do that. The reason I didn't immediately suggest that PiMaster was because the position member variable might be private. So let's go to transform. Okay, so it looks like transform.position is public, so you should be able to just set it. Yeah. And here they even have an example of adding, adding to it. So that should work. Yeah, you're learning C++ by doing something. It's hard to just learn a programming language without having a project to attach it to, right? You need to have some project to work on, otherwise you're not going to learn it. But also, you're not just learning C#, you're also learning programming in general. Right? C# is similar to a number of other programming languages like Java and C++. You also know Python. Python's good. Yeah, Python has its own sort of game engine library you can use called Pygame. I've done work with that before when I was younger. Actually, that was one of the first things I learned. Was Python. Yeah, Pygame's a lot trickier than Unity, and it's pretty much just good for 2D stuff. You gotta write a lot more of your own code. So I think for the main thematic idea of the game to be letting go of the past, there has to be something that's keeping the player or the character attached to this day. Something good that happens that day, or something bad that happens that day, maybe. But they have to have some reluctance, I think, to moving on to the next day. So that way the mechanics of the game sort of match the emotional journey that the character's going on. Why is the main character reluctant to move on? Maybe something pretty good happens that day. And they don't think anything and the future could top it. Maybe something really bad happens, like the death of a loved one. They realize that... One moment. Okay. So, maybe towards the end of the day, a loved one dies, and then they realize that if they were to move on from this day, then they would never see them again. Glad to hear it works, PiMaster. Glad I could help. So, maybe I'll ask my viewers, which of these ideas seems more interesting to you guys? The idea of the best day ever, or the loss of a loved one? Master says, how do I do the rotation? I did it the exact same way as for position, but with the rotation instead of position. Player.transform.rotation equals other vector 3 variable for rotation, but it gives error. That's because rotation is not a vector 3, but a vector 4. It's something called a quaternion. I don't actually think... yeah, it's not vector 4, it's called a quaternion. It's a pretty complex thing to understand, quaternion. So what you can use instead is a rotation, like the error does say quaternion. Yeah, so you need a quaternion. You can, instead of giving it an X, Y, Z, and W component, you can give it angles and degrees and X, Y, and Z angles and do it that way. Constructor. Let's see. rotation. Yeah, this is the one you'll want. Or maybe look rotation. That might also be good. Yeah. So you'll either want to do Euler or look rotation. So Euler lets you give an x, y, and z rotation like this. So it's like the x is 0, the y is 30, and then the z is 0. Or you can give it a forwards vector and an upwards vector. So this is good for like angling cameras, right? So you want the camera to look at something. The forward vector should be the vector between your current position and the target that you're looking at. And the up vector should just be vector 3 dot up. So I don't know exactly what you're wanting to do, but one of these two will be good. And then you can set the player.transform.rotation to equal to quaternion dot Euler or equal to quaternion dot look rotation. This is how they do it here. The player is rotated or the 3D rectangle is rotated. I say that you should save the rotation that you want it to go back to and then just set the rotation equal to that later. Do something like, oh, the 3D rectangle is the player. So do something like quaternion default equals position dot rotation, and then later you set position dot rotation equal to default. That could be a good way to do it. I also agree. I think I like this one more. a quaternion default with a space. That way you're making a variable of type quaternion, naming it default, and then later you set the rotation back to the default. So I'm kind of painting in my head what the opening sort of cinematic might be like. Right, it tells this story. They wake back up the next day. The loved one is no longer dead. They talk to them, and suddenly they see things are repeating themselves, and they try to warn them. They don't listen. Loved one dies again. This time, when sitting alone, a mysterious man comes to the character. Tells him he must fix things. Something like that. And then this mysterious man sets the character out on this mission to I'm thinking that the character's also got to have some like driving motivation to to not just ignore the problem, right? So I'm thinking that the character talks with the loved one. Who gets angry that the character doesn't want to save the world. And is being selfish. Okay, now I want to take a bit of time to think about what the aesthetic looks like. I think I spelled that right. I have an error saying I need to put a semicolon in the word default. Oh. That's because default is a keyword, so you need to use a different, something else like default rotation. Just use a different name for the variable. It doesn't like, yeah. Default is used for other things. It's like the keyword if or while or var. So I'm torn between doing something that I know very well as a thematic aesthetic, right? I have to do a lot of the art for this game. So it would be easier to do something that I'm already familiar with, but I'm also kind of intrigued in doing something new and different that I haven't seen a lot. So I'm gonna go with that. And what I'm thinking is that I like the idea of the Greek or Roman aesthetic, right? You've got these temples with these white marble pillars, and I think that could look really cool to have some sort of abandoned temple or shrine be one of the dungeons. And then you like, you know, part of the world is I just had an interesting idea. An epiphany or a font of inspiration of sorts. My thought that I just had was that I think the theme of the game plays very well to the historical event of Pompeii. So back a long time ago, like 2,000 years ago, there was this volcano that erupted, Mount Vesuvius, and all of these people in the town of Pompeii didn't know about it or something. I don't know the story very well. I assume that they didn't think that they had to I think they didn't have to escape, and I killed them all. And so there's like, you know, there's bodies that are they were turned to stone by the magma and the ash that rained down. I think it's a really cool idea. And here's some like art that they have depicting the event. All the planes were full. Yeah. Yep. Some art that someone probably drew 100 or a couple hundred years after. Ooh, I think there's a lot of interesting concepts here. Cool. So I'm gonna add some like kind of pictures over here, and kind of as like an inspiration board or something like that. Yes, PiMaster, my bad. That should be transform.rotation. So this is the Pantheon. That's not what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the Parthenon. I've actually been to the Pantheon, though. Parthenon. like this picture too. That looks cool. I'm interested in seeing some sort of a comparison between Greek and Roman architecture. So I think one of the differentiating factors is like the flanged columns versus the perfectly vertical columns. So this is the Pantheon. You can see they have the very straight columns here. Do I put the quaternion default equals transform dot position in a void or not in a void? Not sure what you mean. I think you mean in a void function or not, but you have to give me some more detail. In a void function. Well, I guess when you're trying to decide if you need a void function or not, you need to think about whether you need some information returned or not. Right? If you need some information out of there in void start, in void update, or in neither. Well, if you want to be able to access it later, actually, you need to do two things. First, you need to, outside of the function, declare the quaternion default rotation like that, and then void start. Here's where you'll set it equal to transform dot position. Nope, transform dot rotation. And then later we have a function like void reset to default. And here you'll do transform dot rotation equals default rotation, like that. Okay, cool. I think I have enough sort of thematic stuff to go off of here for now. I'm going to say that game theme is done. Well, maybe I can get a little bit more out of here. Maybe I can have like a thematic topics. Sacrifice. Death. Life. Bravery. Yeah, it probably gets faster and faster as it's falling because gravity keeps accelerating it or something like that. I don't know if Unity has terminal velocity by default. Yeah, that freezing because it got so fast has to do with the frame rate. It's like you can see the same thing when people record helicopter props. Pretty interesting. Maybe the topic of home is interesting too, because it's like all these people, maybe they didn't want to leave their home. Okay, so I'd say that game theme is done. Let's go look at our dashboard and see if we got our burn down chart. Bam. Our first thing done. It's great. imagine coding 100% in binary, not just the numbers, everything. Well, I I have had to do that before. When I was in college, we had a class where we designed a processor, and it's called a MIPS processor. It's just an architecture for processors. Is pretty simplistic, and you have to come up with an instruction set, and the instruction set has to be able to be decoded in binary. And once you have an instruction set, then you can do what's called assembly code, which is basically a text to number translation of your binary. So it's like you have a move instruction, and the move instruction takes in 2 parameters, and that can directly map to 32 bits instruction. And so yeah, I have had to do that before. But you move away from it pretty quickly. Once you have assembly code, you're flying. The difficult part is going from C, or like, you have assembly code, right? And you can write assembly code and you can interpret that into binary. That's pretty easy. But then to go from assembly to C, you need a code compiler. And I never wrote a code compiler, but some people, and there's some class where you write a compiler. I'm sure that would be a really cool project, but very difficult. Okay. Next, I'm going to work on character personality, but I'm going to take a short break. So I will, I'll tab back to here so something roughly interesting is on the screen. And I'm going to turn off my camera, and I'll be back in probably just a few minutes. Okay. Make sure to unmute myself this time so that when I start talking, it's being recorded. I did not do that last time I took a break. So we're going to work on character personality now. So I've kind of got a rough idea of what my character personality is like from the game theme and the topics. I think that the main character is probably like a lonely person. They don't have a lot of friends. I think probably first off, I think it's probably a he. I don't know. It's what I'm most comfortable writing, I suppose. I think he's likely very lonely because he doesn't pay much attention to others. He mostly focuses on himself and what he's up to. he doesn't have a good sense of humor. Which is probably to do also with his self-absorption. That's wrong. It's a P. He has a strong attachment to the natural world. I think that his strong attachment to the natural world is, well, it's not really in this order. He despite his self-absorption, he doesn't get out of his comfort zone very well. He works for the family stonemason business, which conflicts with his strong attachment to the natural world. It's not that he doesn't get out of his comfort zone. He doesn't stick up for himself. Am I a Z kind of guy or a Z kind of guy? Well, I am American, so I pronounce it Z. Probably wasn't until 4 or 5 years back that I learned people pronounced it Z. It's kind of cool, but I'm a Z kind of guy. He isn't particularly brave. Which explains why he doesn't stick up for himself, but he isn't a total coward either. So there's something else going on there. For example, he isn't squeamish. Okay. Around bugs or blood. He's stood up to bullies in the past. No, rather he is just afraid of grabbing life by the horns. PiMaster, you got everything done for the basics of your game. Congratulations. Not sure what your next step is, but that's an accomplishment on its own. Let's see. Time for the level design. Oh, you gotta make your puzzles. Oh, graphics and sound and everything, basically. I know how that feels. I was working on my roadmap yesterday. This is my whole roadmap. I've got lots and lots of different pieces of work here. And these are just the things I've got planned for the next 4 weeks. I've got all this other work here too. So I feel like I've got a pretty good start for defining the personality of this character, but I feel like there's some aspects of personality I might be missing. So let's define personality. Combination of characteristics or qualities that form an individual's distinctive character. I know how to make each side of a cube a different design. Like if I make a texture, I don't want each side to be the same, since when I add the texture to the cube, it makes all the sides the same. You're probably going to need something called UV mapping. Here's an example of them setting up a UV template for a box, I think. I would check this one out. There's a link in the chat. Fairly quick to anger. Aspects of personality. These are the 5 aspects. Extroversion. No, that's a bit too analytical. Personality traits. Yeah, sure, you don't have to do everything all at once. Neuroticism. significant disagreement on its definition. Representing the degree to which a person experiences the world as distressing, threatening, and unsafe. Does this guy sound like he would be neurotic? No, I don't think he does. I don't think he doesn't think the world is out to get him, but rather that it isn't concerned with him at all. Yeah, hey, if you upload it to itch.io and you send me the link, I'll play it. Might not do it on stream, and I'm not going to do it right now, but once I wrap up with my work for tonight, I think I can do that. Positive traits. This is interesting. Neutral traits. Negative traits. Let's pick another positive trait from here. Accessible, active, adaptable, admirable. I think he's definitely active. very perceptive, I think. Very alert and perceptive, but not so much in regards to people. Okay, that's character personality done. So I want to take a look at some mechanical aspects of the character design now. So we have things like speed. Starts off walking, builds up to a jog. This is like how I feel like the character will move around on the platforms when jumping and moving in the game and stuff. I want there to be a sort of curve, so it's like walking pace for a while and then it sort of ramps up to a jog. I don't want it to ever feel like you're really sprinting. I can't export. It says unityplayer.dll was not found. It says to reinstall everything. Dang. Well, did you, before you, I guess, uninstall everything, in Unity Hub, you should check your installs here and make sure that you have WebGL. Underneath it here I have WebGL, and that let me build and export to itch.io. Okay. Yeah, Unity issues can be super frustrating. A few days ago, I went to go open my project and it just wouldn't open. It was like a project I'd already created, and it was like, cannot create project folder or something like that. And yeah. Yeah, I ended up submitting a bug report to Jira. I think a double jump is a really fun mechanic. Oops. increases your range quite a bit. So I'm not particularly fond of like having a game where I jump and then I think also I have double jump here as in progress. So I've played games before where you jump and then you like jump to a platform and it feels like you have to wiggle the movement back and forth to like make sure you're landing on the platform right. I don't want platforms to be too short. I would rather have it be like timing your double and triple jump be the skill, right? So what I'm getting at is having the timing be a bigger factor than the precision. So of horizontal location. Found a missing file. Nice. Yeah, that could work. If it's a DLL, it should be fine, but it could be like an old version. It might not work if it's an older project. So I think I've answered these questions. I think these ones are done. How much can they hold? So I'll call this that's movement. Yeah, I guess all you can do is try it out and like build it, try it out, test it, see if it works. So now we have a question of how much can they hold? So this is basically the question of inventory, right? I think the player should have to make choices about what kinds of weapons and tools they are using, but I don't think they should have to worry about which ingredients to hold for crafting, such as potions and elixirs. What? Really, it's 2 eyes? We're finding out Brian doesn't know how to spell. Man, that's really unfortunate, PiMaster. I'm sorry that it's not going easily for you. That stuff is always really frustrating. If I had experienced that issue before, I'd try and help, but yeah, I don't know. Ban bugs forever. I agree. Just make it right the first time, right? I think a bag upgrade to hold more weapons later on would be cool. Bag upgrade to hold more money, maybe? I think there's like different things to hold are like I think having to hold a limited number of quest items is a good idea, so that way you have to focus on doing specific quests. You were able to build it without running it, and it worked without unityplayer.dll. So it created it, and now it can be ran. Hey, great. Ban bugs forever. The bug was a non-bug. and non-bug things that make you think they are bugs, but really when you think about it, they are actually not bugs. I agree. That's just called being a programmer, I think. That's just one of those things that you have to deal with. You sit there and you bang your head against the wall for 2 hours and then you're like, oh, that's the problem. I forgot a semicolon or something dumb like that. Yeah, those are great. How do they attack? That's a trickier one. I'm going to go to, is the character sturdy? I think that's an easier question to answer. Personality. Yeah, I think he is a pretty sturdy guy. So I think that from a mechanical standpoint, he is, he can take quite a few hits before dying, but does not naturally regenerate health. Cool, thanks for the link. I'll check that out here in just a bit. So I want to talk about how how my character attacks. Prefers to use a long-range melee weapon, such as a lance or pike. Not super big into armor, but is attentive and can use a shield to block incoming attacks with good timing. Also prefers to make strategic sweeping attacks against multiple enemies if possible. Ranged attacks are also within his wheelhouse. But prefers precisely aimed, potentially ricocheting attacks. I suppose I'm thinking more of a spear. I think those are all of my character design stories. So character design feature is done. Go take a look at our burn down. We're doing pretty good. Took us a while to do the first couple, but you see then we've been burning through it. We're way ahead of the game. Today's the 24th, so next time we'll check in will be like here, which means that we're pretty well ahead of the game. Not like pretty well ahead of the game, but a little bit ahead of the game, I think. Because this is noon and this is midnight, so if I check in at like 6 tomorrow, that puts me about here, which I'm a little ways ahead of. And then if we look at our roadmap, you can see I've got these first two done. And so now this blocking like here is no longer relevant. I also want to make sure I have the times on these guys accurate, so I don't know how to, let's see, configure fields here. I guess I'll just use the time tracking. So I'm going to do the time tracking in terms of days. I think let's see. Project setup, that was the 20th. So I spent 1, 2, 3, 4 days on the project roadmap epic. And then for the one I just did, I'm gonna log 1 day. Okay. So that's good progress in the first sprint. Now will be the trickier stuff, right? The rest of this week. I'm going to start getting into Unity, start doing some actual coding. I've been hitting the books here for a while now. I'm ready to get down to business, so. PiMaster, I see your link there. I will go to play that as soon as I wrap up the stream here. And I'll make sure to leave a comment for you on itch.io. I also put a game on itch.io. It was a tutorial game that I went through in Unity Learn, and maybe you can check it out. Also, since we're wrapping up here, oh, your game has a bug. There's no way to get rid of them. Bugs are a certainty in life. Completing your project is not. But I'll check it out anyways. All right. So let's summarize what I worked on today. made a new follower. Hello, PiMaster. Worked out the rough themes of the game. Made an awesome realization about connecting the game to Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius. I'm actually really excited about that. I think that was a great idea. I can't believe I hadn't thought of that earlier. Drafted a personality for the main character. Got some basic movement, inventory, and attack design done. Cool. Next time, horizontal movement and jumping. All right. So, I want to say thank you to the viewers who joined for this stream. If you enjoyed it, once I upload this on YouTube, you should go give it a like. You should make sure to share this with some of your other friends who are into game dev or into gaming in general and want to sort of watch the progress of a game in development, and hopefully at the beginning of next year you'll be able to play it. Yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thanks again for watching and have a great night.